that's the only pole on the other side of the South Pole, from Middlemarch. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
Hi, how are you? Welcome to my channel. In this video, I would like to discuss about flat earth and the Bible again. Not one person has the absolute right to claim their complete flat earth theory is the correct one, and that all else is confusion. But by working together, individually studying, debating, being open, and creating tangible pieces of work, we can figure it out together. Before I start it, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon on my channel if you enjoy. And also, share this information to your family, your friends, and everyone. I can't speak, I had speech disorder. So, I am sorry to use robot voice on the video. Many people complain about this. But now, I had buy a better speech software with good voice. I also put the text on the video, so you can read them if you're not comfortable with this voice. So, here we go. The shape of the Earth. Disregarding the dome, the essential flatness of the Earth's surface is required by verses, like Daniel chapter 4 verse 10 and 11. In Daniel, the king saw a tree of great height at the center of the earth, reaching with its top to the sky and visible to the earth's farthest bounds. If the earth were flat, a sufficiently tall tree would be visible to the earth's farthest bounds, but this is impossible on a spherical earth. Likewise, in describing the temptation of Jesus by Satan, Matthew chapter 4 verse 8 says, "Once again, the devil took him to a very high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world, or cosmos, in their glory." Obviously, this would be possible only if the earth were flat. The same is true of Revelation chapter 1 verse 7, "Behold, he is coming with the clouds. Every eye shall see him." The celestial bodies. The Hebrews considered the celestial bodies relatively small. The Genesis creation story indicates the size and importance of the earth relative to the celestial bodies in two ways: first by their order of creation, and second, by their positional relationships. They had to be small to fit inside the vault of heaven. Small size is also implied by Joshua chapter 10 verse 12, which says, that the sun stood still in Gibeon, and the moon in the vale of Ajalon. Further, the Bible frequently presents celestial bodies as exotic living beings. For example, in them, the heavens, a tent is fixed for the sun, who comes out like a bridegroom from his wedding canopy, rejoicing like a strong man to run his race. His rising is at one end of the heavens, his circuit touches their farthest ends, and nothing is hidden from his heat. Psalm chapter 16 verse 4-6. The stars are anthropomorphic demigods. When the earth's cornerstone was laid, the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted aloud. Job chapter 38 verse 7. The morning star is censured for trying to set his throne above that of other stars. You thought in your own mind, "I will scale the heavens, I will set my throne high above the stars of God, I will sit on the mountain where the gods meet in the far recesses of the north. I will rise high above the cloud banks, and make myself like the Most High." Isaiah chapter 14 verse 13 and 14. Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 15-19, recognizes the godlike status of stars, noting that they were created for other peoples to worship. Stars can fall from the skies according to Daniel chapter 8 verse 10 and Matthew chapter 24 verse 29. The same idea is found in the following extracts from Revelation chapter 6 verse 13 to 16. The stars in the sky fell to the earth, like figs shaken down by a gale. The sky vanished, as a scroll is rolled up. They called out to the mountains and the crags, "Fall on us, and hide us from the face of the one who sits on the throne." This is consistent with the Hebrew cosmology previously described, but it is ludicrous in the light of modern astronomy. If one star, let alone all the stars in the sky, fell on the earth, no one would be hollering from any mountain or crag. The writer considered the stars small objects, all of which could fall to the earth without eradicating human life. He also viewed the sky as a physical object. The stars are inside the sky, and they fall before the sky opens. When it is whisked away, it reveals the one throned above. See Isaiah chapter 40 verse 22. Weaker arguments. Flat earthers also offer some scriptural arguments that are weak, ambiguous, erroneous, or irrelevant. Ironically, it is these that apologists for sphericity usually choose to deal with in their rebuttals to the flat earthers. The weak and ambiguous arguments can help support a cumulative picture, but are insufficient on their own. One of the weaker scriptural arguments is that the sky literally has openings, windows, which God can open to let the waters above fall to the surface as rain. See Genesis chapter 7 to 11, Genesis chapter 8 verse 2, Isaiah chapter 24 verse 18 to 19. Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 15 to 16, and Malachi chapter 3 verse 10. While the idea and scriptures are certainly consistent with the flat earth cosmology, they could, for instance, refer to openings in a spherical shell surrounding a spherical earth. The same applies to the Tower of Babel story in Genesis chapter 11 verse 4, often cited as an attempt to literally reach the heavens. Likewise, flat earthers frequently cite the numerous Old Testament verses referring to the earth's foundations. See 2 Samuel chapter 22 verse 16, Job chapter 38 verse 4, Psalm chapter 18 verse 15, Proverbs chapter 8 verse 29, Isaiah chapter 24 verse 18, and numerous others. Foundations are, however, fairly well covered by geocentricity. No one would argue for a flat earth solely on the basis of foundations quotes. Another less than conclusive argument, that the Bible is a flat earth book as its references to the earth's corners. For example, after this, I saw 4 angels stationed at the 4 corners of the earth holding back the 4 winds. Revelation chapter 7 verse 1. Spherical apologists are quick to point out that the Greek gonia can refer to regions rather than points. Most translations of the Bible opt for points. The King James Version says on the corners of the earth, implying that the writer viewed the habitable earth as a 4-cornered area. This was indeed the way many early churchmen interpreted it. The modern flat earth model doesn't have literal corners. The corners could, however, be those regions at the ends of the earth, referred to by Jeremiah. He brings up the mist from the ends of the earth, he opens rifts for the rain and brings the wind out of his storehouses, Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 16. We shall return to the ends of the earth. The biblical view of the universe is relatively clear and consistent. Biblical statements bearing on cosmology are, with one possible exception yet to be discussed, consistent with the well-known flat earth cosmologies of the ancient Near East, but they are often flatly contradicted by modern science. How do spherical apologists reply? Spherical apologetics. Those who claim biblical support for a spherical Earth typically ignore this forest of consistency, and focus on one or two aberrant trees. Some take refuge in audacity. Henry Morris, president of the Institute for Creation Research, cites one of the more explicitly flat Earth verses in the Old Testament, Isaiah chapter 40 verse 22. The grasshopper verse, quoted earlier as evidence for the sphericity of the Earth. Quoting the King James Version, "He sitteth upon the circle of the earth." Morris ignores the context and the grasshoppers, and claims circle should read sphericity or roundness. This divide and conquer strategy is poor scholarship and worse logic. Heroic efforts have been made by apologists to explain away the firmament, which encloses the celestial bodies, has waters above it, and is a masterpiece proving the Creator's craftsmanship. The late Harold W. Armstrong argued that it is empty Newtonian space, and that the waters above still surround the edges of the universe, though perhaps not in liquid form. This simply ignores difficulties and invents evidence. Gerard Desbou tried to identify the firmament as a mathematical plenum in 1987. In my view, it is a grave error to reinterpret ancient documents, to force their authors to speak with modern voices. Gary Zukav and Fritjof Capra, for instance, read modern physics into the teachings of Eastern mysticism. I consider all such attempts equally suspect. Perhaps, the scripture most frequently offered as evidence of the Earth's sphericity is the King James Version of Job chapter 26 verse 7, "He stretcheth out the north, Sapon, over the empty place, and hangeth the earth upon nothing, Belima." The New English Bible translates it, "God spreads the canopy of the sky over chaos, and suspends earth in the void." It is not clear what this means. The Hebrew Sapon literally meant hidden or dark, and it was used in reference to the northern regions. Belima literally means nothing. That would contradict all of the scriptures, which say the earth rests on foundations, but that interpretation is not necessary. We will return to Job chapter 26 verse 7 later. Speaking of foundations, Gerard Desbou, in an undated paper entitled The Form of the Earth, cites a barrage of scriptures about the foundations of the earth or world as evidence for sphericity. All or nearly all of these verses have traditionally been used by flat earthers to prove the earth flat. If one views the earth as an architectural structure with floor, curtain walls, and a roof, it is natural to assume it has foundations, and, I might add, a cornerstone. Why a sphere would have foundations escapes me. Bou's argument, that these scriptures refer to the earth's core, seems strained at best. Also strained is Bou's interpretation of the ends of the earth as the points most distant from Jerusalem, and his identification of the Chukchi Peninsula of the Soviet Union, Alaska, Cape Horn, and the southeastern tip of Australia, as the four corners of the earth. Bou's most interesting argument for sphericity is based on the Gospel of Luke. He compares the King James Version of Luke chapter 17 verse 31 and chapter 17 verse 34. The former says, "In that day, he which shall be upon the housetop." And the latter, "In that night, there shall be two men in one bed." Italics added. Bou then cites 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 52, to argue that the events are simultaneous, claiming simultaneity is possible only on a spherical Earth. First of all, the latter claim is wrong. The modern flat Earth model has day and night occurring simultaneously at different points on Earth. Second, the Greek hemera was used much like the English day. It could mean the daylight hours, a 24-hour day, or an epoch of unspecified length. Third, Luke appears to have been writing figuratively, and citing Paul to prove otherwise begs the question. one more spherical argument deserves notice. The 1985 National Creation Conference in Cleveland ended with a formal debate on the relative merits of heliocentricity and geocentricity. Richard Niasen of Christian Heritage College, defending the Copernican view, remarked that the Bible teaches a spherical Earth, because it treats north and south as absolutes, but east and west as relative. As evidence of the latter, he cited Psalm chapter 103 verse 12, which says, "As far as the east is from the west, so far has he put our offenses from us." Again, the modern flat Earth model holds that north and south are absolutes, but east and west are relative. In the ancient flat Earth model, however, east and west were about as far apart as you could get, which seems to be the image Psalm chapter 103 verse 12 was intended to invoke. In my view, all arguments to prove the Bible teaches a spherical Earth are weak if not wrong-headed. On the other hand, the flat Earth cosmology previously described is historically consistent, and requires none of the special pleading apparently necessary to harmonize the Bible with sphericity.
The Earth is